Ladies and gentlemen, we are live!
Welcome everybody to the Bronx Sports Jedi MMA Weekly Show. I am your host Austin, and my co-host tonight, Chef Dan. How you doing tonight, Chef Dan?
Salute to you, Austin. Salute to everyone in the chat. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm doing great tonight. We had it was a sort of an eventful weekend, going into another weekend of events. So we're going to break it down. Salute to you, Cooper Zadis in the chat. Salute. I hope everyone and everywhere is doing well.
Definitely agree with your statement, Dan. I hope everyone's doing well, and salute to you, Cooper, for watching us. And where do you want to start, Dan? You want to start the UFC last week, or you want to start Bellator first?
If you want to, I didn't get to watch the Bellator card, so I could only speak on, maybe the Corey Anderson fight. I saw the result for that. I didn't get to see the Vladimir Nemkov fight, so if you want to break that down yourself, you can. But after you break that down, we could get into the UFC because it wasn't too eventful there.
Okay, yeah, I'll start with the Bellator. It was live in Phoenix, Arizona. The reason I bring that up because the crowd. I mean, that was a great crowd in Bellator. I mean, that crowd was really into that show. I mean, shout out to that Phoenix, Arizona crowd. I don't know, maybe because there were a lot of hometown guys fighting that card, or maybe it's just the first big, I shouldn't say the first big MMA event because the UFC was just there 3 months ago with Israel Adesanya from Marvin Vettori. But I guess maybe it's a hometown thing. But yeah, you had the opening fight. Yeah, Henry Corrales being Vladislav Poroshenko. Unanimous decision, 30-27. The fight that kind of surprised me because I thought Poroshenko was going to win because I thought he'd been on a roll. Corrales had lost 3 of his last 4, but give credit to Corrales for going out there and basically controlling the fight and preventing Poroshenko from taking him down and stuff. And when he got taken down, he was able to reverse some positions as well. And also on this card, so salute to Henry Corrales before I move on. Also on this card, you had Brent Primus defeating Benson Henderson. 29-28, 30-27 to the judges' scorecards. This is one of the hometown guys that was fighting tonight, and unfortunately for Arizona, Benson Henderson couldn't get the job done. Brent Primus has always been a great fighter, but a lot of my criticism, other people's criticism was he just didn't fight enough. And thankfully, he fought again this year after fighting 3 months ago, 3.5 months ago in July. No, not 3 months ago in July, and he was able to show his good, his jiu-jitsu and his grappling abilities, and also be able to not allow Benson Henderson to do his type of fight where Benson likes to throw a lot of kicks and things like that, etc. So good credit Brent Primus as he basically apparently he's going to be fighting for the lightweight title next after this victory, where it wins between Quilly and in Patricky Pitbull. I know Red Prince was not happy about not being involved in the title picture, considering he felt like he should have been fighting for the world title. Well, after a performance like this, he's definitely secured a title shot. So shout out to him. Also, now in the co-main event, you get the light heavyweight tournament, which one of the semifinals, which was Corey Anderson versus Ryan Bader. Now, and Ryan Bader is also the other hometown guy. There was about I don't want to say about 4 or 5 hometown people. I forgot I mentioned Henry Corrales does train in Arizona, so the fans there were happy to see one of their guys win there. And Benson Henderson's wife, for those who don't know, fought earlier in the card and won, defeating Colleen Santiago via rear naked choke 40 seconds to the first round. So shout out to her. But unfortunately, do want to mention that. Okay, and also, now let's go back to the light heavyweight tournaments. Now Ryan Bader was the big attraction for the local people of Arizona. He's from there. He's the former Bellator light heavyweight and current heavyweight champion. And unfortunately for them, this was not a good night for the people of Arizona because Ryan Bader ended up losing this fight to Corey Anderson. First round, 51 seconds via TKO. I mean, Ryan Bader was trying to throw a left hook, not like a lunging left, and Corey Anderson timed it perfectly, hitting him around here, and then knocking Bader's equilibrium down, and then it was game over for Ryan Bader. Corey Anderson just ground and pounded him until the ref stopped it. And I would give Jason Herzog, I believe he was the ref in that fight, credit for giving Bader all the chances to fight out of it, to get out of the position, but Ryan couldn't do nothing because Corey Anderson just kept going, just kept punching him. So great victory for Corey Anderson, who his last 3 fights have all been Bellator. He's had knockout TKO victories. I mean, he's looked very impressive. I mean, more so than he typically has in his career, in my opinion. What are your thoughts of this fight, Chef Dan?
The fight was impressive on Corey Anderson's part, even to the point where he even got some attention from the UFC light heavyweight champion and Jan Blachowicz. It was a very exciting outcome for Corey Anderson. To your point earlier, when you were breaking down the event, I saw some of the highlights of the event, and I saw some of the times and the fashions in which that they were getting a lot of finishes, because there were a lot of finishes going on during the prelims and in the main event. I think that was why the crowd was so into it, is when you have a card full of finishes, and especially the in the timely fashions that they were done. A lot of fights didn't go the duration of 3 rounds. A lot of fights finished in the second round. A lot of due to a lot of action, a lot of people showing what they could do amongst themselves. So it was that type of result in having that type of card is a great showing for any promotion, but especially for the Bellator, because they to me, I feel like they stole the show, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch all of the fights that occurred during that time because I was working. But they completely stole the show, in my opinion, compared to some of the results that the UFC had. But now back to the Ryan Bader Corey Anderson discussion. Yeah, Jason Herzog gave him every chance to fight out of the wobbliness and getting grounded and pounded. But when Corey Anderson is on a bull rush on you like that, like, it's the safest thing to do is to get him out of there. And Corey caught him. You said it was in behind the ear to kind of knock his equilibrium. That in the rush of things, you kind of don't want that. You don't want that shot because that's not the cleanest shot. But in the fight game, any strike that lands that the referee doesn't make a big deal out of it, it if it lands and if it's clean to the ref, then it's clean to everyone
I,
else.
I,
And so
I meant on the ear. My bad. I meant on the ear. I think it was on the ear.
you
My bad. I apologize.
yeah, it around the ear area, basically, to knock his equilibrium off. So kind of sort of a rabbit punch in a sense, right? But but the ear strikes are legal. Behind the ear isn't legal. So on the ear is clean on the button, I could say. So yeah, that caught him flush there, and yeah, there was nothing else really to happen. It was an impressive finish by Corey Anderson. He moves on in the tournament, and so it was just a great showing.
Definitely. And Corey Anderson, like I said, has won 7 of his last 8 fights. The only blemish was that he lost to Jan Blachowicz, who is the current UFC light heavyweight champion. So no shame there. And plus, his last 4 victories, Corey Anderson's won by TKO or KO. So, if you go back to the Johnny Walker victory in November 2019, that was a knockout in the UFC. So Corey Anderson's been turned to a finishing machine, which is definitely something you like to see. And speaking of the light heavyweight tournament, his opponent for the finals was decided between Vadim Nemkov and Julius Augustus. Now, originally it was supposed to be Anthony Rumble Johnson, but he unfortunately has the medical condition, so he had to pull out. This was a chance for Julius to step up and possibly make an upset and make a name for himself. In that first round, he almost came close. He wobbled Vadim with an left uppercut, and Vadim went down but got up, but it was still he was rocked, but he got up immediately, and then he got hit with a couple of shots 10 seconds afterwards, like some rights and lefts, and Vadim was able to survive. Despite all that, Vadim was able to get a takedown not too long after that, and that's where the fight changed, and that is the story of the fight. Vadim's takedowns. And off his back, Augustus couldn't really do anything against Vadim's top pressure. Vadim was able to control him, ground and pound him, and even some would say steal that first round. And in the second round, you can argue it was a 10-8 round for Vadim Nemkov because Augustus really didn't do anything. And Vadim just beat him up badly. And it looked like with the final 15 seconds of that second round, the fight was going to be over. But Augustus was able to survive. And then in the third round, if I'm mistaken, is where Vadim took him down and was able to get the Kimura and after passing Gus's guard and just working or Gus's trying to get out, and Vadim was able to get his arm, just put him in the Kimura, and Gus's had no choice but to tap. This was probably Vadim's, in my opinion, his most impressive victory in Bellator of his career, if you think about it, considering he faced adversity, he got wobbled hard, and he got hit with some shots immediately afterwards, and it shows toughness. I mean, a lot of guys who taken an uppercut probably might have been on Queer Street, probably been done, but Vadim was able to show his his toughness, survive that, and then take him down, Gustus, and then just ground and pound him to death, and just to the point where it led to a submission victory. He's able to get Kimura and make Augustus tapped out, and this is very impressive. I mean, you see Vadim. Vadim is kind of like his mentor Fedor, who's kind of small for the weight class. Like Vadim's only 6 foot. Usually 6 foot, kind of somewhat short for that weight class, but he makes it work. He's strong. He's fast. Kind of like I said, his mentor Fedor. So it kind of makes sense considering if you watch Fedor back in his day. He was always smaller than those heavyweights, but he always was fast and had great ground and pound. And Vadim showed it in this fight. And now in the finals of this tournament, it's going to be Corey Anderson versus Vadim Nemkov. And you can make an argument whoever wins this fight has a case. Not saying they are, but they have a case to being the best light heavyweight in the world, possibly. I know Jan disagrees. Obviously, Jan Blachowicz.
Yeah. It it all depends, really. Jan may disagree, but that's because he's on one promotion. So as far as him, he he wants to feel that he is fighting the best competition over there. But if you want to go class for class, as far as who has the better fighters in that division, who would you give the nod to?
That's a tough one because a lot of people may argue Bellator's 205. I mean, 205 division might be just slightly above the UFC's. Slightly, you can make an argument that Bellator might have slightly the better division, 205, with Corey Anderson, Nemkov, and Rumble Johnson, and Bader, and even Julius Augustus, who was 10-1 coming to this fight. He has a case to be in this conversation. There's one better light heavyweights. But also in the UFC, you got Glover and Jan and Jerry and Breakage and Anthony Smith. It's kind of like who do you like? Who you like in those guys? Because some people might think UFC guys are better, but if you watch these Bellator guys, you go, I don't know. I mean these guys are just as good too. Also Phil Davis, that I mentioned, I forgot to mention him as well. It's a close one. I mean, usually in some cases, like some weight class, you can tell UFC's division is better. Like a 155, clearly UFC has the better lightweight division to Bellator. But in this case, it's kind of close. And I know Jan was mentioning to Corey on Twitter that hey, he knocked out Corey in the last fight, but Corey was saying, but Corey, beat him their first fight and basically dominated him. So I mean, it's one of those. I mean, it's what you think. Depends on what you see, because it's not like these two are gonna fight again. I don't think the UFC is gonna co-promote Bellator. Even if Corey Anderson was the champion in Bellator, Jan's still champion.
If I like you said, there would never be a cross promotion because that would be bad for business afterwards. Because you really couldn't conduct the after a cross promotion of that level, there would be a lot more questions than answers as far as that cross promotion would come across. To me, I know you feel that Bellator has the better division. I think the UFC has more talent, just not known yet. I think there has to be more chances because Yuri is on the scene right now, but he hasn't had as much fights, to kind of fill out the resume and kind of, put his name as on a stamp right there. He's had some impressive finishes, but I don't believe he's been tested by that class of athlete yet. Also, man, the one thing you can never escape is like John Jones left that division.
Yeah.
So no matter what, he has that mark, and I think even his name being a part of the UFC in that division, that ultimately leaves a gap of talent above any other promotion.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's true. But with John, excuse me, sorry. Yeah, with John, it looks like with him being part of the division, always leaves a gap between him and everybody else. But John was supposed to be going up to heavyweights if he does, depending on what happens. This whole situation that's going on right now. But you know what? I get what you mean though. I mean it's debatable to me. You can say UFC, you can say Bellator. It's really debatable. It's really close. Like I said, it's not like the 155 where the UFC clearly got the better talents. 155 to Bellator. It's not or a heavyweight where UFC has the better talent clearly. But yeah, I mean I do think Nimkov is. What you gonna say, son?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna want to give a shout to Nimkov because I've been really high on Vadim Nimkov ever since I saw him beat Ryan Bader for the title, and then watching his some of his other fights. And this was and this in his biggest fight of his career, biggest stage, he came through, show a lot of skills and probably impressed a lot of people who saw him that last Saturday. And like I said, I think this really was a great. If you're ever Vadim Nimkov, this was a great statement to be for Nimkov. If and I and like I say, in my opinion, I think Nimkov might be the best 205 in the world. Although I got to see what Jan does next week if he can maybe reclaim that. But yeah, I mean, 205 is exciting again. I mean, this has always been the golden division of MMA, going back to the Pride days and Overland Pride and UFC when Chuck Liddell, T. Ortiz, Randy Couture, and UFC and Pride. You had Wanderlei, Shogun, Rampage, and Dan Anderson, and then even after Pride got bought out, you still had those guys from Pride coming over to UFC. Then you had Rashad Evans, Leo Machida, Forrest Griffin, and then you had John Jones obviously do his his legendary run, and then you also had Cormier and Gustafsson along the way. And then for a while, the light heavyweight division was kind of like then basically, but now it's seen that the light heavyweight division is slowly coming back with talent, and starting possibly a couple of years could be the golden division again of MMA like it used to be.
Yeah, most definitely. So if anything, what we can do is closing out this subject, we can leave this as a poll to the viewers. We'd love to ask this question in the community. Uh, which which promotion do you believe has the better division? That's something that maybe we could leave for the fans to discuss, and another time that's another video that we could have more fan discussion along with that. So leaving the Bellator, do you want to jump right into the UFC because there was a lot of controversy in the
Yeah.
Aspen Ladd versus Dumont fight and also on the card?
Yep. I mean, since you mentioned, let's go to the main event. Let's jump in there. Norma Dumont defeats Aspen Ladd unanimous decision 49-46, two judges scorecards. One get 48-47. Now, basically, it wasn't a great main event. I'm just gonna be honest with you. It wasn't the greatest. It really wasn't. Really, Aspen Ladd just she was out of it. Did you feel that way, Dan? Watching that fight, Aspen Ladd, especially the first 3 rounds.
Watching the fight, it felt like Aspen Ladd was completely out of it. I completely agree with you in the sense that it wasn't an entertaining main event. Norma Dumont definitely didn't help her case in that
Yeah.
fight either, because both fighters, it seemed like, came forward, but sorry, excuse me. Both fighters came forward, but I guess Norma Dumont was just the more active fighter that night, and so that's why she won. But Aspen Ladd was losing the fight clearly the first 3 rounds. She gave herself more of a fighting chance near the end of the fourth round, and near
Yep.
the fifth round, she started to pick up the pace. But picking up the pace in the fifth round lets you know how bad the fight is for you. Um, yeah, it seemed like Aspen Ladd just decided to especially during the first 3 rounds. She wanted to move forward, but not throw any punches, not have any movement. So you kind of just becoming a still sandbag when you're just moving forward for your opponent right there. And so she just kind of looked out of it, looked unprepared, and didn't look, like a fighter that was ready to fight.
Right, exactly. Yeah, definitely. I that's what I saw. Watching that fight, I was like, man, Aspen doesn't look. It's weird because she looked like she was going forward, but not engaging, not doing anything to put a threat on Norma. And Dumont just kept jabbing her to death, especially those early rounds. Jab, 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 jab to keep Aspen Ladd back, and Aspen just kept taking it, which kind of was one of the things that led to her coach Jim West. I believe that's his name, Jim West. If I'm mistaken. I know his last name's West. I know that for a fact. In the controversy of his cornering during those rounds, where he was basically getting on his Aspen Ladd about her performance. Now, some people were kind of like turned off by it. Others were kind of like defending it. Like I know Dean Thomas did defend it during the UFC post fight, the post fight show. And I think Michael Bisping even defended it. I believe Bisping did. I could be wrong about Michael Bisping, but I remember he was talking about it on his YouTube channel. I didn't watch the video, but I saw it was suggested to me I was on YouTube a couple of days ago. And what are your thoughts on hit her coaches coaching the tongue twister coaching during that fight?
Um, it comes down to really two questions for me. Is that number one, do you believe that the corner is correctly invested in the fighter? When I say correctly invested, you can be over invested to a fighter to a point where you have false beliefs about them, and you can be under invested to where, like, you're kind of not giving them the right advice. So do you believe that he was correctly invested in Aspen Ladd? And number two is, what's the nice way of telling a fighter that they're losing their fight?
Right, that's a good point. If you're losing a fight, you're losing a fight. You gotta be honest with them. There's nothing worse than when a fighter's down because their coaches are not telling them the truth. It's just been like kind of like sugarcoating what's going on. It's just like, come on, man, what are you doing? Like you've seen that, right? In fights, it's like kind of annoying to
L-
watch.
like literally the similar situation, well, not similar situation, but the situation you could be referring to right there is coming off of the last uneventful fight that the UFC held, was a Johnny Walker versus Thiago Santos fight, where during the fight Johnny Walker's corner was letting him know that he was winning the fight, when in reality he wasn't winning. He was the less active fighter going into a round where both fighters were simply maintaining their distance, sort of like this fight. Both fighters were kind of maintaining their distance. When they got close, one fighter just seemed to be more active, and that was it. And so now, those two questions I asked myself is like, is Jim West properly invested in Aspen Ladd? I watched all, like, I had to rewatch it because it was on Twitter when they went all 5 rounds, his corner talk, because it was such a big deal. Even Misha Tate tweeted during the fight abuse. which at the time I didn't agree with. And so I took some days. I had to rewatch some of the corner work that was going on. And so I'm watching it. He's calm after the first round. He's calm, but a little more irate, but he's starting to see the bad trend after the second round. After the third round, he's letting Aspen Ladd know, hey, you're losing this fight. You need to ramp it up. After the fourth round, he lets her know that she's straight up losing the fight. And it goes to the second question I ask is there a nice way to tell a fighter that you're losing the fight? And I watched the Michael Bisping video where he said he may not have agreed with the tone, but to to my devil's advocate to Michael Bisping is like, what is the correct tone? Do you want to sound cheery while you're telling a fight? Hey man, I want to let you know that you're losing the fight. It doesn't sound genuine when you say it like that. If you want to sound genuine to the fighter, you got to let them know that they're in dire straits right now and they need to fight out of the funk that they're having. And so now this was such a big deal. It even brought back the corner work that he had with her during the Yana Kunitskaya fight. And that was showed. And it seemed like the same tone he had during the fourth and the fifth round was the same tone he carried with Aspen just before he finished Yana Kunitskaya. So now maybe he felt, especially after the result that was shown against that Yana fight, that hey, she is comfortable with that tone of speaking. Maybe they, because Aspen Ladd, she's she's a professional fighter. She's had at least 11 fights in the UFC now, all with the same coach, so they have a rapport.
Right.
So in this, like in you look at it case by case to kind of see whether the corner, you can see a trend of like, hey, the corner is kind of doing certain things that's not good for the fighter. This is not one of the cases. I know people want to make a big deal out of the fact that they're in a relationship, but I felt like that to me was like I had to remove that. Like even putting in that aspect, it felt like he was honest with her. But if you want to remove that aspect and look at it as a coach and a fighter, he was still being honest with her completely. And so I couldn't disagree more with Misha Tate in her thought of it being abuse. To me, it was right in line with the truth. If it was me in that corner, and I'm not a fighter, but if it was me in that corner and I'm losing a fight, I would want someone to be honest with me. And I've heard a lot of ex fighters on their blog go and say that he was being honest. They felt nothing wrong with it.
Right.
Wh-
Yeah. And you gonna say
Yeah, I
something?
just wanted to ask what were your thoughts on Jim West's corner work?
Okay. You brought up a lot. You brought up a lot of things I was gonna say. You brought up, the fact that they're in a relationship, Jim West and Aspen Ladd. The fact that he did in Aspen's last fight, which was almost 2 years ago against Yana Kunitskaya, which Aspen won. He was doing a similar thing. He did basically the same thing there, and Aspen got the victory. So he probably thinks, hey, this motivates her. You know what? If I do this, she's gonna go out there and go like Tasmanian Devil, go all out and be more active, possibly. And like you gotta be honest with your fighters. You can't sugarcoat anything, especially in this sport where they get seriously hurt. Knockout, submission, what, etc. You have to be honest with them. And I didn't think it was that bad. I think he was being what a coach is supposed to do. I mean, yeah, he's invested in her, obviously. Obviously because coach and student, but also romantically as well. But also coach and student, which is the most important thing in this situation. And if I was coached by my girlfriend or something, not that I have one, but if I did have one, I would want her to be honest with me, tell me the truth in anything. Especially fighting, where you have to be, where especially this sport, you want that. And and they're my coach. Even at a coach where I wasn't romantically involved, they're just my coach. I would want a coach to be honest with me and tell me the truth, so I know what to do. So I just sugarcoat anything, and I lose and I get embarrassed and it looks terrible. Which no fighter wants to get embarrassed. Let's be honest. On especially your main event in a show.
I agree with you there completely. And the last question, anyone would have to ask themselves is like being real with yourself, like listening to the tape over again and putting yourself in Jim West's shoes in the situation, watching his fighter losing the fight. And honestly, if like the commentators are saying it and we as fans, we have eyes, you see it, like I'm seeing it. Aspen Ladd is coming forward not with the same intention that she had during the Yana Kunitskaya fight. She's a better striker than what she displayed during that fight.
Yep.
She's a better wrestler than what she displayed during that fight. Has better footwork, better technique, all of that. It was like she showed us a lesser version of herself. And so the question you have to ask yourself, being honest, is was Jim West degrading her? And to me, the answer is no.
No.
And that's where I'll leave it at that.
Same, I agree. Now, one that I do want to mention, Aspen Ladd, I didn't realize until afterwards that Aspen Ladd, her last fight was almost 2 years ago, and because of that, the reason why she didn't fight for a while is because obviously the COVID and stuff, and also she got knee surgery, where she, and it took, and she waited to get to before fighting again. She wanted to make sure her knee was recovered before going into her fight. And then, so it took her. So who knows? Maybe the injury had something to do with it. Plagued her. Excuse me. Because you mentioned with Thiago Santos how when he had that fight with John Jones and tore basically every ligament in his knee. Now for a long time he wasn't the same in terms of his fighting ability compared to before the injury. So maybe that's something to do with it, the knee surgery and things like that, or not fighting. Possibly could be maybe. But
I mean, I can't attribute the knee surgery to what I saw from her. What I can attribute from what I saw was the layoff. It's like that's the only thing I can attribute to that is after having a layoff, you know, some fighters when they come out in a barrel with their hair on fire, throwing caution to the wind, not having the correct defense that they usually have. Or some fighters after a layoff, they'll come in trying to look for every perfect shot. So now because they're looking for every perfect shot, they're too patient. So now in a fight where both fighters are extremely patient, the judges end up just looking for activity, and that makes the fight easier to judge. Who's more active? And so that's the only thing I can attribute to the inactivity we saw during those first 3 rounds is the layoff. But other than that, it looked like the movement was still the same. If anything, she should have the upper body movement was stiffer, and I don't think that comes from the knees. That comes
yeah,
from moving your head and keeping your head on a swivel. And she wasn't throwing punches.
yeah, that's a good point about the upper body movement. That's true. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. Like I said, the jab she kept hitting it by a jab all day. Well, not all day, but yeah, basically the whole most of the fight, Norma's jab kept hitting her. And like I said, it's probably due to lack of head movement. So that's a good point there.
Most definitely. So with that being said, would you like to break down what you saw in the second in the co-main event fight? I believe that was Andre Arlovsky versus Carlos Felipe in the heavyweight division. And in this fight, man, I thought it was gonna be I thought it was gonna be a knockout, but this was more of a tactful fight, especially for heavyweights. You kind of
Yep.
don't expect it to be a fight full of tactics, but it was a tactful fight. At least that's what I saw. Tell me what you saw.
I agree. It was tactile. I mean, tactful. You're right on that. Orlovsky was very tactful with his offense. In terms of not his offense, but his defense. He was like, moving and like a lot of like a lot of like moving his body and like trying to like get out the way. But and Carlos Felipe, he was being tactful, but at times, but also I feel like when Felipe did land on Orlovsky was it was more power. It was more power behind it. You can tell like Orlovsky felt it. And there were times where you wonder, oh, is Orlovsky gonna get dropped? Because Orlovsky's had a history of chin giving out in certain fights, and plus he's had like I want to say like 50 plus fights too. So you fight that long, get hit as much as Arlovsky has over the years, your chin's going to deteriorate over time. So with that being said, I mean Arlovsky, he's a lot of movement, a lot of movement and stuff like that in terms of one getting hit. But then as the fight kept going, Arlovsky did slow down though, and Felipe started doing somewhat better. But Arlovsky, especially in that second round, seemed to be ahead of Felipe despite all that, and he was able to squeak by a decision 28-28 and all three judges scorecards. I think Arlovsky was able to tag him more, and then even when Felipe did tag him, Felipe didn't he didn't throw more shots despite having more power. And Arlovsky was able to using his being more active, was able to get the victory over Carlos Felipe in my opinion. Close fight though, because Felipe thought he won.
Um, your analysis was interesting, especially the part where you said that you felt like Andre landed. He had more power behind his shots during the early rounds.
I
To
mean, Felipe.
me, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I mean I think he was more active in early rounds. I think I don't know if he had more power behind him necessarily, but I saw him that, and also he was he was a lot more. He used a lot of movement during this first round, and then kind of slowed down as the fight kept going on.
Um, it did definitely look like Andre Arlovsky was the veteran, the clear cut veteran, the clear cut professional with more experience in the octagon with Carlos Felipe. I know you said it looked like he had more power, but watching that fight to me, I had to rewatch it again. This wasn't the most entertaining fight in the main event in the on the main card to me, but I had to watch it again because what Andre Arlovsky did to me did to me was very impressive. I think it was a combination of footwork, timing, and placing because Carlos Felipe is known to throw punches in bunches.
Mhm.
So what Andre Arlovsky did a lot of the time was he kind of timed Carlos Felipe. Like a lot of the first round was about gauging Carlos Felipe's timing. Andre Arlovsky spent a lot of this fight backing up. Reason being to me was because I felt like he knew Carlos Felipe was going to advance anyways. Whether or not he was scared of Carlos Felipe's power, I think the grizzled veteran in Andre just decided, you know what? I'm gonna feel it during the fight anyways. If he knocks me out, he knocks me out. If not, this is gonna be a long fight for the kid. And so once he felt Carlos Felipe's power a little during that first round, he got comfortable with the timing. And so when Carlos Felipe would throw the punches and bunches, he'd know when to step in with the clinch, stop the punches, separate, and land his counters. And because Carlos Felipe was like being stopped in his momentum, Carlos Felipe did not know what to do. A lot of the times he tried to close up and Andre would slip through the guard and land some shots. And Carlos tried to shake them off and tried to show to the judges that nothing was hurting him. But there were times when Andre Arlovsky wobbled him and just, showed the veteran. And I think, if anything, the defining round was that second round to me. The second round, Andre Arlovsky showed, who he was, and he dominated that second round. The first round, it was a kind of give or go take, but you saw Andre, kind of close out the round stronger than Carlos did. So you could give it to him in the first round 10-9. The second round to me is more of a 10-8 round to me because it was just more a masterclass of footwork, timing, angles, knowing when to slip out, knowing where to be to land your punches, where to clinch, where to slip out of the clinch so you're on the side landing the punches you want to land. The third round, he got a little gas and Carlos decided to step it up. But even if he did win that round, 2 rounds to 1, I had to give it to Andre Arlovsky. So it was a very grizzled veteran fight, very impressive. But right back to where I said it was uneventful to me. No one distinguished themselves as title contenders, and I'm even gonna go in depth with this with another fight on the main card. But Andre Arlovsky's talking about maybe he wants to go have a run at the heavyweight title again. That fight didn't convince me. What about you, Austin?
Didn't convince me either. Like you said, good performance, but like I said, it wasn't like a convincing. It didn't convince me that he had another run to go after the title. I know Orlovsky's had these moments in his career where, if you like 10 years ago when he lost to Suri Karatana in Strikeforce in the heavyweight Grand Prix, he had lost 4 in a row. Everyone thought he was done then. Then he goes on, wins a bunch of fights and outside promotions, and then he loses the Rumble, but wins, decent amount, gets back to the UFC, goes on like a 4 or 5 fight winning streak, and basically he's top 5 guy again, then loses to, Stephen Miocic. Arlovsky, then he goes on a losing streak, but then he wins a couple, wins some fights, then, loses. He's had those moments, but I just don't think Arlovsky is exactly, I don't think Arlovsky's going to make another run at the world title at this point in his career. I mean, he's competitive enough we can beat these young guys still in fights, but like I said, child contention, not at all. And yeah, he's won, I believe. Let me check. Hang on. He's won 4 of his last 5 fights, which is pretty good, but still not exactly gonna be. I don't think this time next year it's gonna be a top 10 heavyweight division. I'll be shocked. That would shock me if he's like somehow ranked this time next year.
It would be shocking to me, but what I can say is watching the fight, he doesn't look like he has a 5-round gas tank.
Good point. Yeah, good point.
He looked too gassed during that 3rd round with Carlos Felipe. And though Carlos Felipe, he is an impressive heavyweight, but right now, other than the punches and bunches and the toughness and the grit, he hasn't shown a different set of skills right now to kind of, put people on edge. And if that was the only thing that he had to deal with, and that was, gassing for Andre Arlovsky, then I'm sorry, but there's a guy right now, like before you can even get to Cyril Gane, Stipe Miocic, and Francis Ngannou, I don't think he can survive a 5-round fight with Curtis Blades.
No. Or even Derek Lewis, even.
Exactly, and those are the guys. That's the threshold you gotta cross before you're even in the circle for maybe being mentioned for a title fight. So the heavyweight division is, it's stacked right now, and it's looking lovely. And Andre Arlovsky definitely showed a great fight, but not nowhere near championship level to me.
Nah, I don't think so. Yeah, like you said, he was a former heavyweight champion back in the day, like 15, 16 years ago, but I don't think he's making another run at that title. Yeah. With that being said, we can move on to the next fight in the card, which featured another veteran of the UFC, Jim Miller, defeating Eric Gonzalez via KO, second round, 14 seconds. Now, Jim Miller's knockout it was impressive. It was just, dang, he knocked him out bad. The way Gonzalez fell, man. Gonzalez went doing well early on the first round against Miller, but then Miller, turned around towards the end of that fight, the last minute or so. Then thing comes out and just drives Gonzalez and finish him, and it was a fun fight. Jim Miller at his age and being around this long, still put on good performances in UFC, and that was his first TKO KO since UFC 200. 5 years ago, and his first KO since 2011. So he accomplished something he hasn't done in a while, which is good for him. And what are your thoughts on this fight, Dan?
Very, very impressive KO. It was a comeback from it was a come from behind win for Jim Miller because he definitely got wobbled in the first round. He had to show that grizzled veteran ability and just after getting wobbled, go immediately for the shoot, get a takedown, and rest on your opponent, get close to him, make sure he can't throw punches while you have mount position, while you have top position, on the mount, on the ground, and you rest, you clear the cobwebs, and then you come back, and man, the trend started late in the first round. You saw it when he just kept throwing that left hand, and it found its way to Eric Gonzalez. when the left hand landed the first time, Eric Gonzalez tried to smile. He smiled and tried to laugh it off, but then it landed a second and a third time, and then he tried to clinch, and even in the clinch, it landed a fourth time. It surprised a lot of the commentators. It surprised me, and it seemed like Jim Miller just set that trend as like, hey, I know the left hand is landing. He can't see it coming for some odd reason, so I'm just gonna keep throwing it. Now, you think after getting hit with those shots repeatedly that, Eric Gonzalez would maybe try and shore up the defense and go, you know what, let's get right back to fundamentals. Let's try and find out the timing of that left hand. But he felt like he had Jim Miller almost there. So he tried to go for a more spectacular finish, tried to go for the Anderson Silva front kick. But as soon as his leg came down, overhand right in the second round, Jim Miller landed, oh my God, crumbled him. When I say crumbled him, his legs went bow-legged and just down. And Jim Miller just pounced on him with repeated right hands, and that was it. Referee had to stop the fight. And Eric Gonzalez, if he watches the tape again, you can clearly see it. That was a moment that you didn't even have to get knocked out.
Yeah.
This was a moment where truly you had the fight and you decided to go one way instead of going the other. And you're not it's not to say you're not that guy or you're not capable of that, but anyone can get caught clean. And so what you have to do is go back to what got you to the dance. It's fundamentals. No one goes to the gym and learns the spinning heel kick the first day. Everyone goes, and every gym in the world goes straight to fundamentals. You got to get back to the fundamentals and learning your opponent's timing and shoring up the defense. He didn't do that, and so he got caught.
Right, that's good. That's a good point there. His defense wasn't exactly the best, and he got caught. I mean, he mentioned the Anderson Silva front kick. That's right. I forgot to mention that he did the Anderson Silva front kick, and then when it failed. It was left he left himself open to get caught by that right hand from Jim Miller. And Miller put him down. Miller just pounced on him until the ref stopped it. Great point there. And yeah, like I said, fundamentals win fights, no matter what.
Most definitely. And I know a lot of if some fans don't know what the Anderson Silva front kick is essentially the fighter. Anderson Silva was famous for this. He made this move famous. He essentially had his hands down. He was talking to the fighter, both of them having a conversation, and out of nowhere, while his hands are down, his leg just shoots up the middle, front kick to the face, crumbled his opponent, and then he just pounced on him and got the victory. Now, in order for that kick to work, man, you got to leave yourself defenseless.
Mm-hmm.
And my thing is, I don't know what made Eric Gonzalez want to go for that move, considering that you just got caught clean with like 4 or 5 left hands just before the round ended. It wasn't, you didn't finish the round on a strong note. I don't know. It was baffling to me.
Right, yeah, great point. And that's how Anderson. You mentioned the front kick. That's how Anderson Silva knocked out Vitor Belfort in their child fight back in 2011. He used that front kick and knocked out Vitor. And like I said, Anderson Silva was able to get away with it because he was able to move his body. That's how he can get away with doing stuff like that. And Gonzalez, yeah, he got caught towards the end of that first round with some shots. It made you think, why would you try that? At least so defenseless when you're gonna get caught. And mistake, and he got knocked out because of it. Hopefully, for his sake, he learns and doesn't do that again, fixes his wrongs. As Jim Miller, gets another victory and continues his lengthy career in the UFC with another victory, especially impressive one. Now, Jim Miller is talking about he wants to be the first guy to fight on UFC 100, 200, and 300. Which, I mean, I'm gonna keep it honest. Oh, excuse me, I'm keeping it 100. Honest. I don't see him doing that personally. I just don't see Jim Miller making it UFC 300 because for him to do that, it would be in like King on because UFC this year. I mean, the first pay-per-view was UFC 257, and the last pay-per-view was going to be UFC 269. So that'll be 12 times at 270, 282, 282, 294. It'd be like three years at least before UFC 300 and. Jim Miller is older. I mean, he's been like I say, he's been around since UFC 100 at least. That was 12 years ago, and I just don't know if I can see Jim Miller fighting still be on the roster UFC roster by the time UFC 300 comes around. I don't think Orlovsky being in the title picture is likely. I don't think this is likely either, personally.
Um, if it's for a longevity award, you never really know. After this fight, he is going to take some time to recuperate. If he is active enough and he wins enough fights, and he's like, you know what, I'm just kind of not going to move up the ranks, but I'm just going to test these young guys, hold the spot somewhere in, the rankings, maybe number 10 through 15, and just test a lot of young guys. You never really know. 3 years, that's a long time, but you never really know. The sport is chaotic. So it doesn't sound likely to me, but I don't want to dismiss it and say like it's impossible. You never know. Glover Teixeira is still around here.
That's true, but I don't know because I like Jim Miller, but Glover Teixeira, Jim Miller was never the fighter Glover was in his heyday in terms of being elite like Glover. But I get your point though, and I just don't know. I mean, plus the UFC is notorious for after guys lose several fights and don't look the same, they'll just cut them. So that's where I wonder if Jim Miller, let's say, loses his next two fights and doesn't look well, UFC might just say, you're gone."
Yep.
Possibly. Yeah.
Plus, the UFC has been doing a lot of cuts, so we never really know how that's going to go. So, with that being said, hopefully Jim Miller, does find a way to achieve his dream. It's not a large dream. He's not trying to, I mean, essentially, as long as you are sticking around just to stick around, you are taking a roster spot from someone who does want to take a title shot. But if he has the ability to be around and have that, then hey, kudos to him. But yeah, on to the next fight. This fight went on the main card. This was in the women's flyweight division, I believe.
Yes.
Manon Fior versus Myra Bueno Silva. Manon Fior won the fight. It went to a judge's decision. It was a unanimous decision. Austin, if you saw this fight, tell me what you saw out of this.
I was gonna say the two main card fights and most of the prelims I didn't get to see on. I didn't get to see, unfortunately. So I really can't speak on what happened in terms of how Fiona won against Buenos Silva.
Okay, so then I want to break down this fight
Go
because
ahead.
I had to pay special attention to this one because a lot was being said during the fight, but after the fight, certain things became clear. Both fighters were coming off of, I believe, seven fight win streaks. So both fighters very impressive. Uh, Manon Fior, she's been known to be an aggressive striker who, she's just punches and bunches. And Bueno Silva is just very, very tough. She's a very, very tough fighter who has a lot of power. She's not gonna do punches and bunches, but she has grit and she has some spunk to her. Now, watching the fight, the first round, Manon Fior started to establish herself with I believe the combo was a 1-2-3, and she'd either mix in a leg kick, here or there. But it was really a 1-2-3 pushing forward. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. That's what she's pushing forward with. Now, Bueno Silva is trying to find the timing for it, but Manon Fior is mixing in the leg kick well with the three punch flurry. So that's what's going on in the first round. So Manon Fior wins the first round through that combo. The second round, Bueno Silva starts to find the timing for that. So she tries to throw some counters. She does land some counters, but and it's during the second round, it is convincing enough to maybe she can kind of win the second round. But then Manon Fior starts throwing in some knees along with the leg strike and the 3-punch combo. So now it's throwing off Bueno Silva's timing again, because she's clinching, throwing the knee, or when Bueno Silva gets the timing of the 3-punch flurry, she'll kind of evade it, come in, but then Manon Fior would either stop short of the third punch and then throw the knee to get some distance, or throw a front kick to separate themselves. The third round is a continuation of this. So now by the end of the round, we kind of see who's winning. But, how do I say this? During the fight, during the second and the third round, Bueno Silva is trying to show to the crowd, trying to show not to the crowd, but to the judges, that she's not being affected by Manon Fior's attack. So she's kind of laughing it off and showing her face, things of that nature, right? Come here and all that, right? By the end of the third round, everyone knows who's won the fight. Bueno Silva is trying to convince herself that she's won the fight, but it is what it is, right? Watching this fight, what was said during the commentary of the fight was that we may be finding out who Valentina Shevchenko's next opponent is. And I saw that look on your face, Austin. I had that same look after the fight, because if, like, Manon Fior won the fight, and because she was smarter than her opponent, she was able to just throw 3-4 attacks. If it wasn't the combo, it was the leg kick. If it's not the combo, then the leg kick. It's the combo and the knee. Salute to you, Robert Parr. If it wasn't the knee, it was the front kick to do to the mid kick to kind of to gain some distance and to throw off her timing. Manon Fior, she's good. This wasn't a number one contenders fight.
Yeah, that's what I
No
was
one was.
thinking. Yeah.
This wasn't, and nor did it show the skill of a number one contenders fight. And honestly, watching Valentina Shevchenko's last fight, if this is what's left in the division for her to fight, I can see why she's kind of calling out Amanda Nunes. And it's not to degrade Manon Fior coming off of her victory, but essentially, like, that was not the best showing if you want to say that you want to fight Valentina Shevchenko. Because if you think that was enough to beat the Bullet's going to find ways through all of that.
Yeah, it's no. I want to add something. This was Fiona's 8th straight victory, which is 8-1 now, which is good. But like you said, Bueno Silva wasn't exactly ranked either. It's not like she was top 10 or anything. Who she, who Fiona beats. Not only that, but I mean, I think a girl like Casey O'Neill is a better challenger than Fiona. I'm just saying. I mean, it's right. No one's talking about her. That's just. I'm surprised. I mean, even based on what you saw the fight, even you don't agree with that comment.
It was, and the crazy part was, like, I know the commentators were trying to sell a potential fight, right? But sometimes you got to leave it to the fighters themselves to sell the fight. Because while it was Michael Bisping on the call, while he was trying to say, like, that she could potentially be Valentina's next opponent, he was also saying, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the Bullet. That lets you know that that's not her next opponent. Mike has to know better than that.
Yeah, he should. Come on, Bisping.
Like, and come on, like, the count knows better than that. And so when you have to say things like, I don't want to be disrespectful, but this might be your next opponent, that lets you know that shouldn't be the next opponent. That the way the UFC works itself out, man, the division will let you know who the next opponent is. while Khabib retires and Dustin and Conor are having their spat, right? And
Yeah.
so while that's happening, uh, 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 the UFC decides to move forward with the division, and they have two available fighters coming off of fresh victories, very impressive victories, in Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira to fight for the championship. They fight. Charles Oliveira wins. He's a champion.
Hmm.
Like, the division let us know that Dustin Poirier was the next contender. We were waiting to see, before that matchup was decided, we were waiting to see what Justin Gaethje was going to do, because he was the last guy for the that fought for the title. Maybe he would have been greedy enough to mention his name, things of that nature, but he chose the radio silence until Michael Chandler said his name. The division let us know who the contender was. It was Dustin Poirier, especially coming off of the victory off Conor McGregor, because we all knew if Conor beat Dustin, he was going to be loud enough that he was going to be the next guy to contend for like, these type of fights, regardless, even if it didn't live up to the billing, but we know the division lets you know after that fight, the division's not telling me that Manon Fior is the next contender. The division's telling me that Manon Fior needs at least two more impressive victories before we can try and crown her the next contender.
Right, exactly. I'm just surprised that Bisping said it. I'm just like baffled. I mean, she's not ranked. Gwen Silva's not ranked. I mean, how you gonna say that? I mean, and plus, I think a girl like Casey O'Neill might down the road might be a legit challenger for Valentina. How you gonna How you gonna say that? I mean, how you gonna? I just dumbfounded. I mean, like, just
Yeah,
hard to say.
it was completely dumbfounding, and so to that point, I was, you know, the bullet is safe. Her
Yeah.
reign is safe right now. They like the division has to figure out who is going to challenge her next. But until then, Manon Fior, excellent, not excellent, good showing. Maybe you get a ranked opponent that pushes you now, but yeah, to me, not next up. And so, with that being said, I want to attack the last card on the last fight on the main card. It was Nate Landwehr versus Ludovic Klein. Nate Landwehr wins the fight via submission, round 3, with the anaconda choke. Uh, Austin, you told me you didn't see this fight, so I saw the fight, so I can tell you, man.
And a con choke.
Uh,
You don't see those that often. I mean, that's
you
intriguing.
don't see those that often, but Nate, man, he the train was in effect. It was consistent pressure, and no matter what Ludwig hit him with, man, he just kept moving forward. Robert Parr, we're talking the UFC card that just passed right now, the Aspen Ladd versus Norma Dumont card. We're on the last fight of the the first fight of the main card, which was Nate Landwehr versus Ludovic Klein. Man, Nate Landwehr was, oh man, his pressure was consistent, and no matter what he got hit with, he just kept going and going and going. And like, I said, like, some guys really didn't separate themselves, but to me, if anyone separated themselves from this card, it was Nate Landwehr. Very impressive victory, and I hope to see him more, because this was, this was a gritty fight from him. He took punches. His defense needs to be better, because if he is going to climb up in the rank, there are guys with better accuracy and better power, and you don't want to be taking all those shots. But man, he was very impressive. Very, very impressive.
Yeah, man. If you ain't con choke, that's impressive. I mean, you don't see it often, like I said. But yeah, yeah. Congratulations to him, and shout out to you, Robert Parr. I didn't get a chance to shout you out. But yeah, but yeah, that's the main card of the UFC past UFC card this past weekend. In the prelims you want to mention before we move on?
The only prelim I want to mention is that I know I was on the lookout for Lupi Godinez to possibly win her fight because she came off of the fight the last week and
Yeah.
entered the ring again. She didn't win the fight. She lost via a judge's decision, but she went the full 3 rounds. And regardless, coming off of a loss, one thing I do know is that after you do something like that, the UFC is going to call your number again with a bigger opportunity. So what I can say is, even though she did lose, look for Lupi Godinez to be back in the ring. If not this year, well, because most of the cards are decided, look for her to be in a very special place on the card next year. Possibly the heavyweight card that's coming out soon. Look for her to be, in some sort of like contention matchup, or at least getting a chance to have some ranking on her name.
Gotcha. Okay, and yeah, that's the MMA for you, Robert Parr. Depends who you subscribe and like, cause live MMA events happen throughout the week, throughout the year, and a lot of channel, if it happened, of course, MMA channels are gonna upload videos reacting to it, breaking it down. That's the sport. It's a lot of action in terms of cards.
Most definitely. Like, so even with that being said, I want to get right into something that possibly, gave Robert Parr, it gave me 5 notifications. So I know it gave Robert Parr, a couple notifications on his phone. And that's this fight coming up on October the 23rd, this Saturday. Paulo Costa versus Marvin Vettori. It was
Woo.
originally supposed to be at the middleweight division, but due to some circumstances on Paulo Costa's side, Paulo Costa's side, that it's going to be at the catch weight of 195 pounds. Um, I know we want to talk the punches and the kicks, man, but before we get into that, just the issue of not putting weight. We've talked about this before about how fighters have come out with impressive showings, but because they have not put on the weight, it kind of really didn't matter. You weren't disciplined enough. Austin, you got to tell me what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it's bizarre. It was kind of strange because the interview. I'd say I don't think you saw it, but for those of you who don't know, yesterday, as this live stream, ESPN did a sit down. Barack Obama did a sit down with both Marvin Vettori and Paulo Costa, like like the Zoom where they were talking to each other, and Paulo Costa basically said like he basically can't get his weight down, things like that. So they decided to do 195 because Paul, I think in the media day before, mentioned he was like 216, 2 days before the weigh in, which is that's just, which to me is just like a lot of weight, especially considering it's 185, not 205, and then like that sit down, well, at that interview with Barack Obama and for Tori and Costa were talking, it's almost like, yeah, that Zoom. It almost seemed like he was trying to blame for Tori for the fight being 185, or it seemed like he's putting like all the blame on Vittori, which is just kind of like bizarre. It's like you agree with one. I understand Vittori's point of view. Vittori's like, listen, I don't care, I'll fight you above weight, but it's like we agree to 185, and then the week of you change it to last minute to 190, because you can't make weight. And it's like, yeah, I can understand Vittori being frustrated. Although I will give Costa credit for at least being honest. UFC saying, "Hey, I'm not going to make it." In that aspect, yeah, you can be kind of good guy with him, but at the same time, it's like at the same time, it's like, dang, what happened? How did you not put your weight down? I mean, it's 185. You should have like had. You could have a nutritionist at least try get the weight to close enough to where the cut's easy versus not. I have all that muscle, but still, you've made 185 plenty of times. I don't think he's ever missed weight before. I don't know what happened. Especially considering Costa is not exactly, considering Costa, it hasn't exactly had a good year or so ever since the Israel Asanya fight, especially with the whole, the allegate, the whole him drinking a bottle of wine before the biggest fight of his career. I mean, what the fuck? I'm sorry, but why? If that's how you do that, the biggest fight of your career, you're drinking, you can't sleep. This is the day before. It's like, you couldn't get melatonin, hot tea.
I, I'd also like to ask Robert Parr in the chat, man. You let me know, man. What do you think of Paulo Costa not making weight for this fight? Like, what, like, like he got another notification that there was a weight change. Yeah, like because Paulo Costa, he's not right. He's not at the agreed upon weight that they signed the contract for. Robert Parr, I'd love for you to give me your opinion on what you think of Paulo Costa not making weight because I'm about to delve into this. I know, I know you said you can understand Marvin Vettori's you know, point of view at that he'll fight him at the catch weight. He just wants to get the fight over with. Um, that's the macho man response. That's the macho man response because as a fighter, you don't want to make a big deal about the weight. You want to seem to all the fans like, hey, I'm a fighter, fighters fight, things of that nature, right?
Right.
But my thing is this kind of bleeds into the business side because this was agreed upon on a contract. You're a middleweight fighter because you fight in the middleweight division. You just contended for the middleweight championship. Regardless of the outcome and whatever bullshit excuses you came out with, and excuse my language because I know we're just getting monetized, but whatever BS, whatever BS excuses you're coming out with, you didn't make the weight. And now you're trying to make up all these excuses. This is exactly as you said, a bad look for Paulo Costa because literally the last fight against Israel Adesanya, you were inactive during that fight. Israel Adesanya danced around you, KO'd you, and then danced on you after he KO'd you. After which you said it was a disgraceful showing by Israel Adesanya, but that man literally could do whatever he wanted with you in the octagon. He knocked you out. He had the ability to do whatever he wanted with you in the ring. Okay? Meaning, if he wanted to dance with you, dance around you, he could because he put you in a state where you couldn't respond to a referee. You had to sit down for a while and gather your thoughts. And then you blamed that on a bottle of wine and drinking the night before. So now, regardless of what you're saying, you're unprepared for your championship fight. Apparently, you worked really hard to get to that. And I can't dismiss the hard work he put in because he really put in some hard work to get to the Israel Adesanya fight. But that's half the battle. Half the battle is getting the fight that you actually want. The other half of the battle is doing the necessary steps prior to the night of and then executing your plan. So regardless of the outcome, you could look your coaches in the eye. You could look your fans in the eye and say, hey, I gave it my best effort. But the night you put out that video and said that you were drunk off the wine and this, that, whatever, you didn't give your best effort. So that was the first time you're doing that. And now you're coming back with the second time. So now before you've already set in, you already have a built-in excuse if you lose the fight. You're not prepared. You don't have the proper weight because you didn't manage your weight correctly. Why didn't you manage your weight correctly? Because of Marvin Vettori? That's impossible. Marvin Vettori can't be a part of your fight camp. If he was, you have an irresponsible fight camp. That you'd have an irresponsible coach if your opponent is right there in your camp. That's not what was going on. Clearly, you're irresponsible. It's right back to the bottles of wine for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I,
But yeah.
so, like Robert Parr is like you making my point exactly. Like who ate cat sandwiches before the weigh-in? Like that's what the pastrami does. It puts on an additional 20 pounds.
Oh. Yeah. It's like it's kind of crazy that if you watch that interview, that Zoom interview with Okamoto and Vittori and Costa, it's like kind of like Vittori's like just like can't believe this guy's attitude. Like, he's like even also and Costa, like it's almost like Costa's saying, "What he's like." Well, Vittori's kind of bothered. He's not. He'll fight you. It's like we agreed this weight, and they're changing the last minutes. It's like, yeah, it's
My
kind of
issue with that wasn't even really that. Like I didn't have to watch the entire interview because there was one clip that was put out there. And it's Paulo Costa nonchalantly saying, hey man, I just couldn't make the weight because I didn't want to make the weight. I didn't want to prepare for this guy.
That's
So
right.
now,
Yes,
like, honestly, like, I'm looking at the card, like, this is the problem with it. This is the problem with what he said. I'm looking at the card and I don't know a lot of the fighters on the card.
right.
And so now I'm like, I gotta be honest to the people that's watching this. If Paulo Costa's not invested in this card, how can I be invested?
Good point. Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, this was on paper. Costa and Vettori was the best fight, the main event. I mean, not the main event. Excuse me, of the weekend. Excuse me, best fight of the weekend. Considering Bellator and UFC are both on Saturday. I was so looking forward to this. I thought, man, this is the best fight of the weekend. I was so I was interested to see how both guys would do, considering both are coming off championship losses to Israel Adesanya, which were the worst performances, are ranking up against Israel, who they both can't stand, but Israel is a beast, just like Robert Parr said earlier. Is he just? Yeah, I mean, he basically.
He's a different beast when it comes to that middleweight division, and it's even to a point where right now, like the UFC is funny right now. They signed Alex Pereira for a reason. They want to
Yeah,
build that fight because they know after the Robert Whitaker fight, you can't build another fight for it. Izzy builds his own fights.
yeah,
Izzy made Jared Cannonier a name.
that's true. They didn't fight yet, but you're right though. He did.
He made Jared Cannonier a name, and then Robert Whitaker took that name from Jared Cannonier for a moment. And that's why Robert Whitaker is in the place that he's in right now. Izzy just mentioned one guy's name, and then Robert Whitaker was able to take care of that guy. It, I don't know, I know Vettori said some things about Israel Adesanya, which was delusional to me
Oh
because
yeah, he's losing out too. Yeah,
he said that Israel Adesanya wasn't better, that he was just smarter, but that makes him a better fighter anyway. So I don't like Robert
yeah.
Parr, man. In the words of the late great Kobe, Israel Adesanya is the same beast and a different animal. Like, I don't know how else to say it. That's who he is, and that's why he's got both these guys. Like, this fight was supposed to be about the two guys who hate Israel Adesanya the most, and you know that you're main eventing on one of the last cards in the year. If you put on an impressive showing, you're the next guy, because after Bobby Knuckles is done with Israel Adesanya, whichever way that fight goes, even if Izzy loses, right, he's gonna have to take some time to recuperate. Robert Whitaker is probably gonna ask for more competition because he likes staying active. Whoever wins this fight may possibly be the next guy, but because Paulo Costa is not invested, I can't. I can't put on Robert. Like, Robert Parr just asked the question earlier that, how the fights are looking on this card. Like, I'm not all too invested in this card right now.
I agree. I mean, I'm not too invested in this card either. And Costa and Vettori that was the fight. Like, this fight is this fight was so exciting. Yet now one of the guys is not invested, which is Costa basically. Like, comment, it seems like he's not. But yet, because I remember Costa after the couple months after the Israel fight, he wanted a rematch or something like that. It's like, a rematch after that performance, you don't deserve one. Go out there
It
and win
was
a
a
fight.
terrible, but this is part of the issue with Paulo Costa right now. He's delusional.
Yeah, I mean,
If you
both.
thought that performance dedicated a rematch, you clearly are not, like, you. It was not wine you were drinking.
No, it was
You
just
had to have
not.
been drinking. You had to have been drinking absinthe or something, man. Like, I'm. It's
I know,
that
I
real.
know,
Like, you
I
had
know.
to have been
Yeah,
drinking absinthe for you to believe that your that performance was worthy of a rematch. No, and we got to keep it real. Me and Austin, we gonna keep it real here. Like, That wasn't worthy of a rematch. If
No.
anything, this was your best chance to get the rematch, and you're not even prepared. And so now this lends me right back to a video. I just scan YouTube sometimes, and fans have a fun, creative way with certain audio that's shown during fights. I believe after one of Israel Adesanya fights, he pulls Dana White over to the side, and they're playing this deep music with it. And it's an awesome video. I wish I could link it to show it to you guys. Whoever did the music and did the editing for this video was awesome. But Israel Adesanya is irate about guys not making weight, and so he pulls Dana White to the side and he goes, "Listen, man. Yeah, like making weight matters. That's part of the dedication to being a fighter. That's part of the grind. And these guys don't care about making weight. It's to a point now that, they don't care about whatever cut you're taking from their purse. You're taking like what, 10% from the purse? No, F that. Take 50 from the purse. You take 50 from the purse and you make sure these guys feel it in their pockets. That way they never miss weight again. If the other guy on the other side of the octagon, and he did everything he could to make sure he was prepared and gives his best in the octagon, like it's this the way a fight goes, man. Two people have to do their part, and it's the two fighters in the ring. And part of doing your part is cutting the weight. It's cutting the weight to the agreed upon weight. That way, when both fighters enter the ring, you know that they entered the ring with a certain equalness. As far as, we can't measure their skills. This is what the fight is for. We're here to measure the skills and the heart. We don't know that. But what we can do is equate the weight. We can equate the weight so there's no disparity. But man, like you like Paulo Costa really knows how to tank the promotion on his own fight.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly before that press call, before that Zoom call, I was thinking I thought Costa was probably gonna win because he has more power than Vettori. And I thought the fight lasted third, fourth, fifth round Vettori would win, but I thought the power would be too much. I thought Costa was gonna win, but after this, I mean, I'm not gonna say it's 100% because Costa might figure out a way to win, but I think I'm leaning towards Vettori winning this fight now after this.
This is a fight that I see Vettori just kind of dragging him.
Yeah.
Just taking him straight to the ground. As like, you're heavier, fine. I'm going to use that weight against you. I'm going to make you carry me on your back. You're unprepared. You're undisciplined. I know you didn't train properly because we have to bump up to 195. Look at you, fat boy. I'm going to have you carry me. All that. You want to put on this extra poundage so that way you have more power. You're naturally the more powerful fighter.
Right. Right, exactly, and it's it's crazy. I mean, I wouldn't know what Israel Adesanya is thinking right now because I know somewhere he must be laughing at Paulo's delusion. Because I'm not sure you saw the video of Israel's YouTube channel on Sunday, but on Sunday before 6 days before the fight, he made a video where he basically was breaking down, but also clowning both guys with the wine, Brazilian wine, and like the pizza for representing Costa Brazil and Vittoria from Italy. It was a great video. It was a great video though, and funny though. Great Israel. If you ever haven't seen it, go watch it. It's like
I
it breaks
gotta
it down
check
the
it out.
fight.
Look, salute to Robert Parr. Highlight that chat and let's leave it up. I
Which
want to
one?
leave this up for the remainder of the night.
Which one?
Costa the Doughboy, because that's what he is, man. Fat boy. Come on, man.
I,
There's an
I,
agreed upon weight. You signed the contract. Be a man of your word. Be a man of business integrity, and come in at the agreed upon weight.
yeah, I mean, I always thought it was weird he made 185 because I always thought he looked big. I always thought he should probably be a 205 or just as me personally. But if he, but if he doesn't, he has struggled to make a weight at this point. I mean, might as well be a 205er. Might as well.
My issue is that he shouldn't be struggling at this weight because his last fight was against Israel Adesanya. How long was that layoff?
A year ago, yeah, it was September last year is when that fight happened.
You essentially had a year to get your weight right. Like Robert Park, once again, his vibes were unprofessional during that Zoom call. He's laughing it off. I couldn't make weight, but let's highlight that Costa the Doughboy right back up there. That's for the rest of the night. I'm with that energy because I wanted to see good fights, but this this fight, like literally after he said this made me want to watch the Shakur Stevenson fight that's about to happen this Saturday in boxing. I believe that would be the best chance for everyone to kind of want to see fireworks this weekend in the combat sports game. That's to me, that's the fight.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a big boxing professional, of course, Stevenson. I've heard of him actually. Yeah, I know he's doing well right now, so it'll be interesting to see how he does in this boxing fight. But yeah, I mean, hopefully this somehow lives up. Hopefully it does become a good fight for Vettori and Costa. Hopefully, I mean, I know Vettori's going to go out there and bring it, and probably Costa will. I mean, but I just ask for a good fight. We all ask for everybody watching this stream. Everybody's going to watch this fight and this fight Saturday. Hopefully, it's a good fight. And yeah, I mean, on this card you also got Francisco Trinaldo versus Dwight Grant. Trinaldo's been in his UFC for a while, so we should see how he does. Alex Paredes, Bruce Leroy against Suwei Choi on this card, and the co-main event, Grant Dawson versus Rick Glenn. So yeah, I understand where you're coming. I understand where you're coming from. Like Costa saying that, it's almost like, it kills the vibe. Looking, the excitement going into this fight just a little bit though. For me, it does.
It kills the vibe completely for me because like I said, I really don't know any of these fighters, but part of the reason why you have a main event of that stature is so that people can kind of get introduced to the fighters that are going to be on this card. And I'm going to watch because I am a fan of the UFC regardless. Dana White does know how to put on a good promotion, so I can't hold this against Dana White. But man, oh man, like this is, if like, as a businessman, this has got to grind Dana White's gears right here because this is disrespectful.
Yeah, I can
Straight
imagine.
up disrespectful. I have nothing else to. I have no way to promote this fight card. Like
I,
it was
I
supposed to be fireworks, but I'm kind of just looking forward to Shakur Stevenson versus Jamal Herring. I know that's going to be at 10 o'clock, so the main event probably goes down to 12 o'clock. I know I got to work in the morning. I'll try and separate some time to just at least watch some of it, then get some sleep. But I'm gonna watch it, but I don't have any way. The same way you didn't have any way of promoting the fight for the fight for Aspen Ladd versus Dumont. Like I was ready to get into this. I can't because this guy is just so unprofessional.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I understand your point. I feel you. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, and it's like it kills it a little bit. Like, damn it, Polo, come on, man. It's like, hopefully he brings it. I just hope he goes back to, hopefully he doesn't do what he did against Israel, where he just didn't try, looked too, wasn't going out there, and Israel just picked him apart and just destroyed him. And yeah, and this is supposed to be a bounce back fight for both guys. Like I said, both of them got their worst performances against Israel Adesanya for the title in the last fights. And these are two guys that hate Israel probably the most out of everybody. And Israel has a rivalry with them. He likes to make fun of them. And yeah, hopefully it's a good fight. I just asked that. But anyway, let's yeah. Anyway, yeah, I see Robert Park. The smug face of Costa became out victorious. He possibly.
But see, like, and right back to the Doughboy. I thank you for the Doughboy comment. I can imagine his smug face too, but it'll go right back to asking the question, man. Were you this victorious because you were more comfortable at a higher weight? Because you naturally look like you should carry more weight than the division allows. It looks like on fight night you come in way higher than 185. It looks like Israel Adesanya is a natural middleweight. He looks like the natural middleweight. Marvin Vettori looks like he kind of cuts a little to get to the weight, but he's kind of closer to the natural middleweight size. But this guy, man, if I don't want to see that smug face after you win. At the end of the day, you're a loser. And that's what I want to wrap it up with. Paulo Costa, you fat doughboy loser. Come in next time at the agreed upon contract weight. Because you like that's disrespectful. That's disrespectful to the fans. That's disrespectful to Dana White. That's disrespectful to Marvin Vettori.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I guess Israel is right that Paul's got a lot of yes men. Maybe they need to get rid of yes men because Israel said in that video he did break down this fight that during the press conference a week of his fight at Paulo that it seemed like he has a lot of yes men around him and things like that. And it seemed like basically that was like one of his problems with Paulo was that. But yeah, I mean, it seems like maybe it's the case. Israel was right again. Israel knew what he was talking about. But yeah, I guess we'll just leave it there, and we'll see what happens Saturday night or Saturday afternoon because this is a 4 o'clock time starts. Saturday afternoon, 4 o'clock. This event starts. Another Saturday, mid Saturday, Saturday afternoon. I think my screen's frozen. Hang on. Let me just. Okay. Yeah, Saturday. Start time. Now, there's also another big time MMA event going on around at 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon, Showtime. Bellator 269. However, in this case, they're in Moscow, Russia, in a stadium, I believe, in like a stadium too. So it's gonna be like a stadium show. There, going back on the screen, not frozen. Right, and this fight is headlined by Fedor Emelianenko versus Timothy Johnson. Now, this is for the people of Russia, this is like a mega card because Fedor is a legend, not just in MMA, but especially in Russia. He's like really like beloved over there. Like he does stadium show. Like he fought Jeff Van Soon back in 2011, 2012. In a small promotion, and he had to do like a big show, like I think a stadium show, like a small stadium show. But you get what I mean, though. That's how big it
Yeah.
is in Russia. And like Fedor, I mean, when you think of Russian MMA, Fedor and Khabib are usually two guys you bring up when I say Russian MMA. And Fedor, for those of you younger MMA fans, you probably don't get the appeal of Fedor. Fedor, if you've watched Fedor's career like I have, like I said, I got MMA 2013, but I went back and watched those pride fights of Fedor. Again, he fought Randleman and Coleman and Mirko Krokop and Mark Hunt and beat all of them. And Toro Nogueira, and things like that. And Fedor is like the greatest heavyweight in MMA history. I know Stipe has, people might say Stipe, but I still think Stipe has, he's close, but Stipe's got a little more. Fedor, for 10 years, from 10 years was undefeated basically. I know he's had one loss, but it was a BS loss. It was due to a cut from an elbow. It really wasn't a true loss. And plus, I think the elbow was illegal too. That the guy Fuji, I forget his name, the Japanese guy who did the elbow. I forget his name, but Fedor got revenge like 5 years later in Pride, and Fedor knocked him out. But anyway, yeah, he was undefeated for 10 years, 30 fights undefeated. Best heavyweight beating all these guys, whether it be Arlovsky, Tim Sylvia, all those other guys I mentioned. He won a fight getting slammed on his head. You've seen that clip, right, Dan, where Fedor gets slammed by Randleman, and then 30 seconds later he somehow makes Randleman tap, which is just crazy, unbelievable. And just Fedor, Fedor, I mean, if you think about it, Fedor's success has made it easier for Russian fighters to get into big-time MMA promotions. I'm not saying they're all directly tied to Fedor, but Fedor's success made it easier for guys from Dagestan, like Khabib and them, to get into UFC, and guys like Peter Yan from Siberia and other fighters from Moscow. And now you have Fedor's protege and Vadim Nemkov, who's the Bellator lightweight champion. Now he's doing success. And there's, I think, another one of his proteges, I believe it's Antonio Tokov or Minikov. One of them is his protege also, who's on this card too. So Fedor is like
Vitaly Minikov.
Vitaly Minikov. Thank you very much. And Minikov, yeah, who I think I forget, one of them is Fedor's protege. I forget which one, but now his Fedor, his legacy and it's spreading to his students now. And I just want to do a brief preview of Fedor because a lot of people, they hear the name, they don't always get the mystique about him, why he's so high regard. And it's a point that we mentioned that, especially since Fedor mentioned this could be potentially his last fight, potentially, of a legendary career. And it may not be, but you never know because he is 45 and still dominating these fights all these years later. Not dominating, excuse me, competing all these years later and winning fights. I mean, his last fight was a victory or Rampage in Japan in late December 2019. And so this is going to be interesting. Fedor going against Timothy Johnson, which a lot of people said this is probably a bad matchup for Fedor. They don't know why Fedor took this fight, considering Timothy Johnson is a lot, it is a lot, has a lot of power and is also, better cardio than, this point. And it looks like it might be a go wrong for Fedor. But one thing about Fedor, for those of you who don't know, he always likes to take tough fights. He's never been a guy that takes easy, like especially when it comes to big events, he likes the tougher fights. He always like going against guys, who can give him challenges in these big fights. And this is a big card for him because obviously he's main eventing his home country in a stadium. And I'm interested to see, can Fedor have that last magic, or is Timothy Johnson basically going to, be the younger fighter, the more guy in his prime? Is he going to go out there and just take care of the legend Fedor? So that's definitely is our legends are it's going to have one another great moment, maybe his last great moment, or it's going to be like a lot of legends. Is back to the canvas, or it's by to the canvas.
Most definitely. I agree with you there completely. I have nothing to add to that other than I am looking at the card, and one of the names that I'm interested in watching is Usman Nurmagomedov.
Yes.
I saw his I don't remember which his opponent was, but I did definitely see him fight on Bellator last, if it wasn't this year, earlier
It,
this year,
it
then
was
last year.
it was you talking about the one, the Agent McKee Pitbull card? Or
Yes.
yes, that one. Yeah, we get the knee to the gut.
Yeah, yeah. And so I definitely remember him. He's definitely a Nurmagomedov with that pressure and that wrestling ability, but also I think like his striking is something to see, and so I'm definitely interested in seeing him fight. So that's a name I'm paying attention to on the card, and that's gonna get me. That's gonna keep me interested. I'm definitely looking forward to this card.
Me too, especially Usman, who's looked great in his two Bellator fights. You know, he's looked very. Look, it looks like the guy is probably in a couple of years going to be the light heavyweight. I mean, not heavyweight. Excuse me, the lightweight champion in Bellator. He looks like he's going to be, continuing his cousin Habib's footsteps in terms of being dominant, undefeated. Because as he is right now, he's 13-0. I expect him to go 14-0, but then anything can happen. I expect him to go out there in front of his home country in Russia and go out there and put on a great performance. He has obviously Coach Javier Mendez and Habib Nurmagomedov, his cousin, as his coaches. So they have a working formula that works. Considering I think Habib cornering Bellator and UFC is undefeated, hasn't lost yet. Those guys have lost when he's cornered them in UFC and Bellator because he cornered Islam Mamadov also in Bellator as well. So I think it's going to continue with Usman. I say Usman's very exciting. He's got great striking too. His striking's on point. I mean, his knee. I mean, he finished with a knee to the guts. I mean, I should tell you how good Usman Nurmagomedov is. And watch out for that name.
Most definitely. And so with that being said, I'm definitely looking forward to this. Salute Robert Parr to the super thank you for the super chat. You always showing love, man. Salute to you. Salute to you most definitely. Kev said it, man. When the gear comes out, you're one of the first fans that we're sending something to because you always show consistent love. So salute to you, man, and thank you for the love.
Definitely. When gear comes out, we'll definitely give you some when it does come out. Definitely, I agree. Definitely. Yeah. Salute to you. But
So with that,
I do want
yeah,
to ask.
no, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say. I did want to talk about the two other main car fights.
Oh,
Two. But
go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry about that, guys. Yeah. Vitaly Minikov versus Saiz Samana. Vitaly Minikov is 22-1. He was the former Bellator heavyweight champion, and he has one loss. Granted, it was to Czech Congo. Some people might go, some people might scoff at that, but the thing with that fight is I didn't realize it until later on that he was on antibiotics in that fight because he had an infection, and I've heard stories that if you take antibiotics, it drains your energy dramatically, especially fighting. Like it's like the worst thing to do. We have to take it because it makes you just use up no energy. and basically that kind of like cost him in that fight with Chet Congo. Because I remember Luke Rockhold, when he beat Chris Weidman, he was on antibiotics, and Rockhold was basically like, he won the fight, but Rockhold was basically looking like he couldn't, like, basically at the end, he had to be carried out despite winning the championship. So, yeah, antibiotics fighting on that can really mess you up. And that's probably a big reason why he lost to Chet Congo. Big reason. But yeah, Minkov is 22-1, 13 knockouts and TKOs, 7 subs. So most of his fights are finishes. He usually wins by finish. Depends on how it goes. And Saeed is 7-2, 4 TKOs, KOs, 1 subs, 2 decisions. I expect this to be a showcase for Minkov, like I said, in his home country, from his friends and family, I assume, and hopefully, maybe, and maybe from his, I'm sorry, I forget which one is a Fedor Proja. I know one of them is between him and Tokov. So yeah, this is a big chance for him to showcase, from not just it's Russia, but also around the world. People are watching this, whether on Showtime America or other places in Europe or in Asia for Bellator, where you watch Bellator fights. Also, another fight in his main card that I think could be fireworks personally is Antonoli Tokov versus Sharif Deltomordov. And this fight, the reason why I say this is because Dalvich Murdoff, it's a hard name to pronounce. I'm sorry. It's a right. Sharif has won 6 in a row. Is 18-3, and he's a finisher. 13 of his victories are finishes. 13 of his 18 victories are finishes. And then you have Tokov, who's 28-3, winner of 5 in a row. 23 of his 29-3. 23 of his 29 victories are finishes, including 6 TKOs, KOs, 16 of them, and 7 subs. So these guys bring action. They finish their opponent. So somebody's probably get finished in this fight, and they're both Russian too. So they both want to go out and showcase themselves in front of their home country. This big Russia card. So I think that could be fireworks. Personally, that fight particularly.
So it's looking like the whole card is set up to be complete fireworks because everyone is in their hometown and they don't want to embarrass themselves.
Right, and also if you're Timothy Johnson, you want to go out there and being a fledgling like Fedor is like the highest honor. It's a high honor you can get. I mean, more people be aware of him if you beat Fedor, and also get a chance to play spoiler in Russia. I mean, that's something that can be a big motivating factor for Timothy Johnson.
Most definitely. So with that being said, I encourage everyone to watch the fight. I'm most definitely watching that fight. That card comes on at the same time as the Shakur Stevenson versus Jamal Herring boxing matchup. So I might be doing the double duty of watching those 2 fights as well.
No, this fight is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because they're in
Oh,
Moscow.
3 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh, 12 o'clock in Moscow. Okay, so yeah, hopefully I get home just in time enough to watch this. Then I'll watch the UFC. Then I'll get right into boxing. So yeah, epic Saturday night for combat sports.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I do want to shout out Darina Mazdiuk. The reason I say that because this woman fought a man in an exhibition fight. I think the guy was like 400 pounds too, and she beat him. And so I want to give her a shout. She's fighting this card, which is kind of like crazy as well. To should be a man that big in an exhibition fight. But yeah, definitely a great night for
You
combat.
said who? What is her name again?
Darina Mazdiuk.
Mastic. Okay, because I
Mazdiuk.
saw that clip and I couldn't believe it at first, but I had to. I know what clip you're talking about.
Yeah, she's fighting this card. She's also Russian as well. I mean, if you're that guy, I mean, what the f? Seriously, that's. I
Yeah.
mean, unless she becomes the next great female fighter, then we'll see. Who knows? But still,
Until then, man, I hope that guy is recuperating well.
yeah, definitely. And yeah, like Dan mentioned, great night of combat for Saturday night. You got the UFC starting at 4 o'clock and Bellator starting an hour earlier in the afternoon. Then Saturday night you got boxing. Shakur Stevenson, big time boxing. Go out there, go out and continue rising up the ranks and having probably another spectacular performance.
Most definitely. So with that being said, um, we're getting ready to sign off on the show. I just want to say I hope everyone joins. I hope everyone enjoys this Saturday night. I know Paulo Costa. He didn't sell the fight as what we wanted for UFC, but there are other events. It looks like Bellator is coming on strong to finish off the year because it's the last event all the fights were ending in KO fashions or submission fashions, if not in the first and in the second round. So I'm encouraging the fans, please watch Bellator, pay attention to Bellator. They're putting on shows with great fighters out there. And that's what I want to say to end off the night. Austin, send it off to you.
Okay, yeah. First of all, sorry about that noise. That was my alarm going off. I remind myself to do something. But anyway, besides that, yeah, Dan is right. I mean, Bellator had, watch Bellator because Bellator has put on some good shows last couple, this past year. They've really, ever since they got on Showtime, I feel like the quality of fighters and fights have gone up dramatically. It seems like ever since they went to Showtime. And, they've had some great moments, and these guys are bringing it. Especially last fight had a lot of KOs and TKOs and submissions in the first and second round, especially. And definitely, Bellator looks like another great card, especially with all the Russians flying on this card. They're definitely going to go out and showcase from their home country. But also,
Expect a lot of violence. Sorry for cutting you off, but with the Russians, expect a lot of violence.
definitely, especially with those Russians. Yep. And right, and definitely, and also the UFC. Also watch the UFC because maybe someone might have a great performance, a great submission, a great knockout. This on the undercard, maybe someone makes a name for himself in this fight on this UFC card. Also, I do also. I mean, hopefully, Paulo Costa and Vettori fight can be good. Hopefully it's fireworks. Hopefully we're looking and go, man, that was enjoyable. We'll see Saturday night. We'll see. I mean Saturday afternoon, but we'll see definitely. Also, Chris Stevenson going, fighting the Saturday night. So if you like boxing, especially once see a guy who has a lot of promise and a big, guy who could be a big time player in boxing, Chris Stevenson's your guy. So yeah, if you're a combat sports fan, you got another Saturday to enjoy and look forward to as well.
Most definitely. So, with that being said, I want to tell everyone good night. Hope everyone enjoyed the show. Hope you guys enjoy Saturday. It's going to be big fireworks. Be prepared for that Russian card. Be
Yes,
prepared for Bellator in Moscow. It's going to be
I
fireworks and violence. That's the only thing fireworks and violence.
Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, I have to record it because I'm gonna be in AEW this Saturday. Because AEW is coming here to Orlando, so I'm gonna be me and Brad both gonna be at that AEW show, which is actually a good AEW show considering they're beginning their championship tournament for number one contender in the AEW World Title tournaments. So definitely, yeah, like I said, tournaments. Everybody loves a tournament. Doesn't matter if it's sports entertainment, pro wrestling, or it's MMA fighting, or heck, but yeah, pro sports are tournaments. The playoffs, it's just a tournament.
Dana White, if you're listening, everybody loves tournaments.
I agree. I agree with everything Dan has said. The sport was founded on tournaments.
Okay, so with that being said, anything else you want to add, Austin?
No, just thank you guys for watching us and enjoying our videos. Thank you for clicking subscribe and subscribing to the channel, watching our videos, sharing them, watching and listening to us too on audio. Also, got to mention that as well. Whether it be on Spotify or podcast FM or even FM, Buzzsprout. Oh, I can't talk today. I apologize.
It's either on Anchor FM, Spotify, Podbean, Reason FM, or Buzzsprout.com. Check us out on all podcast platforms, and we're coming soon to Apple and Google. So we're going to be right there in case you're working and you want to hear that. You want to hear MMA discussions and breakdowns, but you don't want to kill your phone battery because you're watching on YouTube. I know how it feels sometimes when I'm at work in the kitchen. I sometimes got to just be cutting up big bags of carrots and lettuce and peppers, and it's a mindless task. And so I want to hear that MMA talk without killing my phone. So I just go to Spotify, type in Bronx Sports Jedi Network, look for the MMA talk. and I'm listening right there. So salute to everyone. Hope everyone enjoyed, and have a good night.
Thank you for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you next week. To then, goodbye, and stay safe, and peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are